morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Yesterday it was a pretty slow news day on this side of the globe, but over in Asia they continue to make headlines. So much so that today I can fill an entire episode with stories about Asian talent and the growing strength of the Asian box office. So let's start off with the first story that was announced yesterday that Donnie Yen has signed with CAA. And he left Paradigm to do so because I think he's not happy, obviously, with the job that Paradigm is doing of introducing him into the U.S. market. He wants to become a household name here. He's huge in China. He's a Hong Kong movie star. China and Hong Kong, they kind of cross over in terms of their film industry, but he's doing very well there. But yet still, well, everyone over here knows Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Michelle Yeoh to some degree, Chow Yun-fat, Ken Watanabe. They are unfamiliar with Donnie Yen. He wants to see that change because this is still, despite Asia's gaining on us fast, but the United States is still the biggest movie market in the world. So there's a lot of money here, obviously, in play, and Donnie Yen's like, I've probably, to some degree, gone as far as I can go in China. I'm a huge star coming off The Monkey King. Big hit, 165 million grossed in China. Hasn't opened here yet, but there's a lot of interest even here. I reviewed that trailer. And also, it's already had a sequel greenlit. But, he wants to come over here. I think this is the next area for him to grow as a talent. And I think he's a multi-hyphenate, by the way. So it'll be interesting to see what he does stateside. But this is also interesting for CAA because it shows a strong desire to diversify internationally in terms of their talent pool. As you might recall, I recently discussed how they signed Eugenio Derbez from Mexico. And you're more familiar with Eugenio Derbez thanks to Instructions Not Included, which opened last summer, and it was the highest grossing Spanish language film ever for the United States. So maybe they were able to use that with Donnie Yen and say, look, we have Eugenio Derbez over here. We're really committed to bringing international talent stateside, which I hope they are. I think that would be really exciting. And CAA, by the way, it's kind of the playing field in terms of talent agencies has leveled out recently, but CAA is perhaps the most iconic. For a long time, it was the agency to join. And just a fun fact, they have these beautiful large headquarters, this big glass building they built in Century City in Los Angeles, and it's nicknamed the Death Star. So that not only tells you a little bit about how the building looks, but how CAA is perceived in the Hollywood community. So they're getting some great international weapons for their arsenal. So Donnie Yen, can he cross over? Well, he's hoping that the film that he can do, and this deal interestingly started at Paradigm, even though he left Paradigm, but I think Donnie Yen is hoping that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 2 will be the film that gets him recognition here in the United States. They're starting to film it in New Zealand in June. That's great for New Zealand. Their film department must be thrilled because The Hobbit, of course, is wrapped the second trilogy. The film hasn't come out, but they shot them all together. So now this will give them another reason for you to come and visit beautiful New Zealand. I love the Lewis Black joke. All due respect to people from New Zealand, but I saw a comedy show of his, and he said, when you spend like 24 hours on a plane, when you get out, you'd like it to look a little different. I guess he's just talking about the airport because obviously New Zealand's vistas are just stunning. We see them on display in the Hobbit films and the Lord of the Rings, and now we're going to be seeing them in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which, as you might recall from the first film, really utilizes its settings. And so maybe they'll keep up their sets there as well, and you can go and visit both worlds. I love that they keep the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit sets up for people to go and visit. I think there's just really up that you can go and see. It would be great if Warner Brothers and whatever studios, I think it's the Weinstein Company behind Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, were to invest a little more money in those experiences, kind of like the Harry Potter one that Warner Brothers has set up in London. But there's more money involved with it. Well, actually, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are huge money makers. So get on that, Warner Brothers. Kevin Tsujihara, come on. All right, so back to Donnie Yen. I'll be very interested of anyone who's familiar with his work. Do you think that he can appeal to U.S. audiences? Or is anyone familiar with how good his English is? That's always a big hurdle for foreign talent. But I really, I'd like to see The Monkey King come out here. It comes out in the fall, I believe. I'm very curious to see it, especially after it made so much money in China. I'm really upset that we're continuing not to get these big movies overseas released in any, large platform or even semi-large platform here in the United States. So Donnie Yen, he's coming. Get ready. Or don't. Donnie Yen hopes that you do. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, another star, this time from South Korea. We just talked earlier this week about how South Korea is becoming a huge market, particularly for Disney. They're shooting the Avengers 2 in Seoul right now. But another South Korean talent, Byung Hun Lee, He's already made some, moves here in the United States. He was in Red 2. He was also in G.I. Joe Retaliation. He was very good in G.I. Joe Retaliation. He had very sharp moves in terms of his martial arts. I think he just had a good on-screen look. I thought he was very cool. I got the chance to interview him. I'll put a link to that interview up at the end of this episode. I interviewed him for Red 2. His English, not great. I think that's probably been his biggest hurdle, but he's got a role where he doesn't have to talk very much, and I think he's going to be very good in it. And it's renewed my interest in this new Terminator film, because Byung Hun Lee has signed on, and he is going to play, it's pretty strongly hinted at that he will be the new evil Terminator, the one that's hunting them. Of course, Robert Patrick, it didn't do much for Robert Patrick's career overall, but he never went away, though, because everyone can always go, oh, that's like the T-1000. I love that guy. He was great, very well cast, and a role that had pretty much no dialogue, very good. And also, I guess over at Cyberdyne, of Awesome had a great sketch a while back about how it was like a spoof, talking about why did you give our Terminator an Austrian accent when we're sending him to America? They thought at first there was like 2 employees, and they thought it was a gag. It's a really funny sketch. I'll try and find it and put a link in the video description. But I guess why not? Why not now send a South Korean with limited English skills to America as well? It would be a nod to the original. I almost kind of wish they would taken out Arnold Schwarzenegger and just had Byung Hun Lee in the film and put him in the hero Terminator role. That would be really interesting. And as I just said, it would be a nod to the weird Austrian choice for the first film and take it to the Asian market, which obviously they're trying to appeal to with this casting choice. But again, love Byung Hun Lee. My only concern is that G.I. Joe Retaliation, while I actually really liked that movie, I thought it was a really great home viewing experience, but it was super cheesy, and I get worried that Byung Hun Lee would only be used in a film that's more concerned with perhaps its merchandising and its toys, those elements, than it is with creating a really good quality film. I hope that's not the case, but kudos to Byung Hun Lee. It's great to see him continue on and do something, and I'm very excited about it. So I'm curious, does this make you feel any better about the Terminator movie? And do you wish that they would just jettison Arnie and put Byung Hun Lee front and center? I think that would be phenomenal. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is the China box office. Yes, it's making headlines again. This thing is growing at an incredible rate. They are continuing to build movie screens over there. They now have half the screens of the United States. They have 20,000 screens to our 40,000. And they've just had a huge surge, around 30% for the first, let's see, I have the headline over here. They have grown 30% in the first quarter from last year. That is, the headline is "Box Office Surges," and you can just practically hear the Pavlovian response from the Hollywood suits as they salivate over all this money that's now on the table. So anyway, last year, just to give you some perspective, last year the Chinese box office brought in $3.6 billion in 2013, in comparison to the U.S. box office, which brought in $10.9 billion. So you can see there's still a big difference. But this year, China is expected to jump to $4.6 billion, jump $1 billion. And as I said, closing in on the U.S. So it's going to become, maybe in just 5 or 6 years, maybe, you might be seeing a situation where, especially if they keep building theaters, China and Hollywood and the U.S. might even be on the same level in terms of what they have to offer in terms of money to films. So I think that's a fascinating development. And so far, interestingly also, and I don't know how much of this is accredited to the tastes of Chinese moviegoers and how much is accredited to the very biased release schedule that's put together by the Chinese Film Commission. They really favor their own homegrown films. But so far, films made in China are doing the best at the box office. They're getting the lion's share of this money. And they sound like some really interesting films. Like I just talked about The Monkey King from last year. There's this film called Where Are We Going, Dad?, which is a reality TV adaptation, apparently, which took in $111 million in China so far this year. That sounds absolutely fantastic. Let's see here. There's also a movie called Wanda, $97 million. Then a romantic comedy called Beijing Love Story. That's the one that they bought all those tickets for Valentine's Day, but they bought every other seat so couples couldn't sit together. That was a hit, bringing in $93 million. Let's see here. And then also a Chow Yun-fat film, The Man from Macau, also did very well. Forgive me if any of these numbers are a little off. Sometimes I see things like from 3 films, from 2 films. Maybe these are trilogies or something, but still, big numbers that a U.S. movie would be happy to get. Now, what is China contributing to U.S. box office, Hollywood films? Well, so far, a big winner over there was The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. We just spoke about that earlier. That did very well, getting an additional $74 million. We just talked about how Frozen got $77 million from South Korea, but now we're over in China. So The Desolation of Smaug, 74. Need for Speed, 60 million, still playing, doing extremely well over there. Despicable Me 2 got 53 million from China this quarter, and also RoboCop made 50 million in China. And remember, China is the only country in the world that got a 3D version of RoboCop, and as you can see, as we discussed before, that gamble paid off. So I think it's just a fascinating development. And I'm really excited to see how this continues to change the movie industry. And if these stars start coming over here, Byung Hun Lee, Donnie Yen, very exciting. Transformers has secondary stars, Han Gang and Li Bingbing, but and then Fan Bingbing is over in X-Men Days of Future Past, but these are small token roles. When are we going to get a big role? So maybe this Byung Hun Lee will be one of them, but I'm very excited about it. I love to see diversification. I love to see an even playing field. I really believe in a meritocracy or egalitarianism, I believe is the word, and so I'd love to see that in Hollywood. So all right, so today's question, we talked a lot about business, and I think that kind of works with today's question. This comes from Grant Rollins, and Grant says, "Hi Grace, not too sure if you'll answer my question, as it could be potentially boring. I beg to differ, Grant. I think it's fascinating, and I think a lot of people are going to want to discuss it with us in the comments." So Grant says, "But I'll ask it anyways. Glad you did. I'm writing an essay for one of my film school theory classes. Fantastic. And my thesis is, are films a form of art or business? I actually got the topic from you." He's talking about me. Thank you so much, Grant. I'm really honored that I inspired your paper, and I think you chose a really fascinating subject. Although, get ready for an intense debate in your class. I had a similar debate when I went to film school, and the entire class turned against me, basically, in my freshman colloquium, whatever, the first freshman class that everybody takes together. Basically, I'll tell you really quickly, the argument was, when you paint a painting, is it for you, or is it for, people to see? And most people argue that you painted it for yourself. But I countered it by saying, well, then why paint it? It's already in your head. If you've painted it, it's for other people to see and to enjoy, and you want to get it out there. So it was a very spirited discussion. So Grant, prepare yourself, especially in film school, where you have a lot of people who really want to see film as art, and it's going to get pretty intense because, you're to some degree calling into question their life goals as an artist, and by telling them that they really, they're ignoring a big part of what they want to do. But anyway, Grant says, "I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on this. I could use all the help I can get. Smiley face, have a great day." Well, Grant, good luck with your paper. I hope this isn't too late. I think you asked it just a few days ago. So basically, art or business? That's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's a huge debate in terms of filmmaking, especially in Hollywood. And I think the answer is that both are at play. There is art and business going on whenever you make a film for Hollywood, and it's not a question of either or, but really of percentages. How much should you focus on art, and how much should you focus on business? Now, as I've said many times, I think that predominantly it's a business, especially if you're trying to make films in Hollywood. If you want to be somebody who makes a living off of making movies, if you want to be someone that people know about. I mean, there is talent that works in the indie circles, and art is the predominant percentage because they just need to impress people in the critics. They need to impress critics and film festival judges. That's their target audience. And often, as a result, those films rarely are seen by many audience members. It's really only seen by the people in those circles. So, Grant, for people who want to go just into indie filmmaking, the specialty market, the larger percentage focuses on the art side. Although don't kid yourself, there is a business of specialty filmmaking as well. It's more political, I would say. So I guess that's a third thing you might want to consider putting into your equation there, Grant. What percentage is art? What percentage is business? And what percentage is politics? I think there are a lot of politics, mostly in the award circuit and the festival circuit, where they like to let in films from people they already know. Once you make a name for yourself, you're almost guaranteed a spot for all your films, no matter how artistic they might be or how good in terms of that way to judge them. So I think that's a whole other discussion. But I think most people are interested in talking about, because this is where it becomes the most intense, Hollywood films, the big blockbusters, the top 10. Is this an art or a business? And we even discussing this yesterday with Tom Hardy. Why should Tom Hardy act? Is he acting for the sake of acting, or is he acting to try and build a career for himself? And I made my case yesterday talking about, if you want to be in Hollywood, why would you be in Hollywood if you didn't want to succeed there? And the name of the game is being a box office draw. And also some people backed up my argument with something that I had not mentioned, which I think is a very good point, saying it's going to really affect the kind of roles you can get going forward. At a certain point, you're just not going to be offered any roles. Someone said, well, are you saying Daniel Day-Lewis shouldn't act because he gets awards? And I countered that by saying Tom Hardy, he doesn't have any awards. He doesn't even have any he might in his native UK, but no, not even a Golden Globe nomination, not an Oscar nomination. And for somebody who's supposed to be a really great actor, an artiste, he should have a nomination by now. So I think that, he needs to be having a very hard discussion with his management team, his talent management team, saying, what's going on here? I've got nothing. Also, as far as Ryan Gosling, he's a great example because he was really at the top of his form. Everybody wanted a piece of him. He didn't go anywhere. I guess maybe he was too picky. Maybe he was focusing too much on making smaller films. He really wanted to make that Nicholas Winding Refn film. I forget the title of it. It's where Only God Forgives, and it went nowhere. It really didn't even get a release. It was released day and date on demand, which was embarrassing at that time for the film. And now nobody wants a piece of Ryan Gosling. He does nothing on his slate, nothing on his schedule. He's not working, and so that's a really important factor. That Ryan Gosling, Tom Hardy doesn't want to join him on having to leave Hollywood basically. So I would say that the other reason that Hollywood movies are a business is because so much money is at play. So much money is at stake. It's an investment. If this isn't a charity where people, someone could say, well, a museum also has admission. But museums are reliant on donations from, wealthy benefactors. Even to this day, we're not just talking about the Renaissance. Even today, I was reading an article about the Metropolitan Museum of Art and their director and how he has to work so hard to get not only people into the museum, but that they still rely predominantly on donations to be able to fund that being around. Now, movie theaters are not the same way. There aren't wealthy benefactors who donate money so that movies can be made that we can all go and see them and pay what we want, like at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You can pay anything you want to get in there. They suggest you pay $20, but you can give them, for a penny, and they would let you in. So that's not the way movies are set up. Millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars are invested in a movie, and return needs to be seen. Not only because you don't want to lose the money, you'll go out of business very quickly, but you have to turn a profit, and that's why you've seen small films go away, because they're just not being able to turn a profit, and they can't compete with these big movies. And so I said before yesterday, even talking about TV competing with film. What are you competing for? Film isn't competing. That's the bottom line here. Film isn't competing for good reviews. Film is competing for tickets sold. It's a product. It needs to have a transaction. Someone needs to pay money for it, and they need to feel they got a quality product. Now, art does factor in here a little bit because obviously it's a very odd product. It doesn't fulfill a need. It's not like, well, I need to eat. I need to, fix this thing at my house. I need a computer to work on. There's no need. Nobody needs to go to the movies. It's a form of entertainment. It's a way to spend your time, which is why television has been able to get the better of movies to some degree, because they're offering a better way to spend your time. So that's where the artistry comes into play, in product quality. Now, I think that, yes, do we need to look at art in terms of business terms, from a business perspective? Yes, and I think that might rub some people the wrong way, but I think that that's the bottom line. The bottom line is for mainstream. So Grant, for your paper, in short, I would divide it. I would say it's a question of percentages. I would factor politics in there, and I would explore both the specialty market, but even look at Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson has realized the benefit to not only more people seeing his work, but probably getting a bigger budget and more room to play with on his next film by going a little more commercial to make his most mainstream film yet with the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I think that's going to have big, huge dividends for his career and probably give him his best Oscar bet yet as well. Because at the end of the day, also the Oscars have to take business into consideration because they're not just giving out awards, they are a telecast and they need ratings. So that's also something that they have to bring into play. So Grant, back to that. Politics, art, business, specialty market versus Hollywood, the fact that this is a product that demands not only an exchange, a purchase from a customer, it has customers right there, but also money is being invested and it needs to be recouped and grown. They need to make more money to make more movies. pay their salaries, etc. Nobody's doing this for free. So thank you so much for your question, Grant. I hope other people here, other viewers, I think you guys would be interested in this. I hope I was right. Share your own thoughts, your own advice for Grant for his paper down below. I'm sure he would appreciate it. Let us know what you get, Grant, what grade you get, and what the discussion's like in your class, because as I said, I think it will be spirited. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. Write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.